And we are back on the InfoWars Nightly News. We turn now to a segment on, well, what else? The health and freedom takeover. As you know, Monsanto has been completely worried about the ability for states, countries, individuals, stores to label genetically modified foods. They're well aware that polls have shown the public will reject GMO foods if they knew and if they were labeled. So what happens is states like Vermont begin to introduce legislation to require labeling, and Monsanto goes ballistic, unleashing campaigns to stop them. Why? Not just because it's one state, Vermont, but because that could begin an entire tidal wave of resistance against the rather evil company. At least other 20 states were also considering labeling initiatives. So Monsanto has, of course, struck back through a proxy. It's Stop Costly Food Labeling and other related organizations who are trying to put out the disinformation that if we were to pass GMO labeling laws, it would somehow stifle all of commerce, shut down the whole world, dogs and cats living together, because it would initiate a whole flood of illegitimate lawsuits and just people going after money, trying to shut down real companies really producing natural foods. It's just another scare tactic. What are they so afraid of? Not only do people deserve to know if they're eating these genetically modified frankenfoods that have been linked to all sorts of health problems, sterility, infertility, organ failure, obesity, all of it. It's just the fact that they shouldn't be able to put this stuff into our food without us knowing. But instead, they've said this would be like Proposition 65, the Safe Water and Toxic Enforcement Act of '86, and it would allow bounty hunting lawyers to go hog wild. But it's just not true. These GMO labeling initiatives have a lot of leniency, a lot of ability for companies to adapt and change. It gives them great windows. And it really doesn't even place liability. We should probably be talking about the liability of them spiking things into our food without telling us, but let's at least start with the labeling. Meanwhile, Bill Gates and Monsanto are going after milk. This was reported at salemnews.com actually a couple weeks ago, but we never properly did it justice. Now we know that the FDA is basically run by Monsanto's former vice president and chief lobbyist, Michael Taylor, and he has been going after everything under the Food and Safety Act that was passed back in January, signed into law, and really just started its enforcement here in July. I think July 3rd. It went officially into effect. So you've got Michael Taylor trying to prosecute raw milk. He's been initiating these raids to go after the Amish farmers, after the different food co-ops, but meanwhile, don't even label GMO foods, don't stop anything. But this actually ties in with more than just going after milk, because Bill Gates, in his world of grants, in his world of he knows better, has another grant for the development of synthetic milk to deal with the immune system. Now, they've been doing research for years now between vaccines and gut flora, between autism and gut flora, between being unable to feed yourself and the balance between having healthy gut flora, all of which is your immune system. Your immune system basically lives in the gut, in the body, and all these unknown foods, the bad foods, not having enough of the right kind of foods, all target your immune system. And after a while, it reaches a tipping point. But instead of just controlling what we eat and introducing better foods. For instance, they point out yogurt here, and yogurt's great ability to produce probiotics, help the gut flora, help you live a healthy life, even if you live in some place like Africa and suffer malnutrition. No, they're going the other route, the genetically engineered route. Bill Gates has an $8.3 million grant to deal with immunity for people suffering malnutrition, and how they're going to put new synthetic chemicals in the milk by cows so that you get the immunity in your gut. Well, it just doesn't work that way. This is a centuries old. This is a millennia old. This is tens of thousands, if not millions of years in adaptation and development, so the gut knows what it's getting, how to receive it, how to use it. But they think they know better, and in just a few years, if not a decade, they're suddenly going to be re-engineering your immune system. Give me a break. But we know they've been doing just this. Scientists genetically engineering cows to produce human breast milk. That's all been happening in the news. They've done it in China, at the China Agricultural University, and other places. And if you connect the dots, you can see what's coming here. They don't want you to have access to raw milk, which naturally boosts immunity, which naturally gives you the things that your gut flora needs for healthy life. Same with a lot of other foods. Instead, they want to genetically engineer the milk you're going to get from cows. It's now going to be supposed to reproduce the effects of human breast milk, even though it's not anything really like human breast milk, and they just want to give you the compounds. It's all part of that Brave New World, and it just makes me sick. The overreach of Bill Gates and his foundation cronies, who are effectively trying to steer the entire world's policy in regards to vaccines, food, and especially GMOs, where of course he has a major stake in Monsanto, a very major shareholder, and he of course runs the Agri-Alliance in Africa and all the different pushes for genetically modified foods to be universally accepted, fast-tracked, and everything else across the rest of the world. And this is just another step in trying to take over your life in the name of giving you good health. It's just crazy. Now, in Wichita, a special case on fluoride. Travis Crank, this is a guy I see all over Facebook, constantly promoting activist items, and now they are launching a propaganda initiative to counter the Wichita, Kansas area propaganda offensive as they now try to finally influence fluoridation in their community. For years, Wichita, Kansas has resisted the move for fluoridation that has otherwise dominated North America and much of the Western world. Now, they're the fourth largest holdout in the nation, and so there's a major offensive to try to get it in there. They've got local spokespersons, local celebrities, signature drives, and, of course, ads they've all bought on television telling you that it's somehow healthy for your teeth and your body to get water, to have your water fluoridated. Well, this group is, of course, trying to do the opposite. This activist group is trying to counteract that and keep the fluoride from being added, but they've had their videos removed, they've had spokespersons speak against them, and they're struggling to get a fair hearing on the local media and in these different meetings in the area. So they're calling on activists to descend on Wichita, make that a bulwark for freedom against fluoridation. Of course, as you know, towns everywhere are changing, reversing, rolling back the tide of that water fluoridation as the facts come in, and we have to stop it from being introduced elsewhere, or else it's just going to be more work. So it's interesting to see how the system descends and makes sure they get in their fluoride when they decide they need it, and how they don't want activists to have an equal voice on those issues. But that's not going to stop us from covering it here and at Infowars.com and all across the alternative web.